Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going all the way to Southern Africa.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, specifically
Where are we headed?
to Eswatini.
Okay.
And Eswatini, it's a small country, but they've made a pretty big decision recently that's got people talking.
Oh, really? What's that?
So get this, they've decided to completely defund Bachelor of Arts degrees, like in humanities,
Wow.
at their main university, starting in the 2025-26 school year.
Huh. So no more funding for things like history, literature, philosophy.
You like all those
Back the implications.
big, and you might be thinking, okay, that's all the way over in Africa. You know, why should I care?
Right.
But hold on, because this isn't just some random thing happening in a far-off place. It really gets at this bigger debate that's going on globally about, like, what's the value of a humanities education, in today's world, and what role should governments play in, what people study and what gets funding.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, you've got Eswatini. Their economy is mostly based on services and industry, right?
Yeah.
So I can see why they might be thinking, hey, we need to make sure our education system is producing graduates who are ready to jump into those jobs.
Exactly. And they're using this national skills audit they did in 2022 to back up their decision.
Oh, interesting. What did the audit say?
Basically, it concluded that BA humanities grads just aren't employable enough. They're not meeting the needs of the current job market.
Employable enough.
Yeah.
That's such a loaded term, though.
I know, right?
Like, what does that even mean? Are they just looking at whether grads are getting jobs straight out of college? Or are they considering the long-term value of those skills?
That's the big question, isn't it? Because we can't just look at what jobs are hot right now.
No.
We need to be thinking about what skills people are going to need 5, 10, 20 years down the line.
Absolutely. And in a world that's constantly being reshaped by technology, those future skills might not be the ones that are obvious today.
Right. Like if everyone's hyper-focused on, coding and AI, who's going to be left to actually think about the big questions?
Exactly.
The ethical questions, the societal impact.
We need people who can think critically, who can adapt to new situations, who can communicate effectively. Those are the skills that a humanities education can cultivate, and those are the skills that will be in high demand no matter how much the world changes.
It's like we can't have all algorithms and no philosophy. We need both.
We absolutely do. And this isn't just some abstract debate either.
No.
This is having real-world consequences for students in Eswatini.
Oh, for sure. Like, think about a student like Sizawethu Shabangu. He's a third-year humanities student over there.
Okay.
And he was totally blindsided by this decision.
Wow, I bet. All of a sudden their future is uncertain.
Yeah, and there are probably tons of students like him who are counting on scholarships to get through school.
Right, and now they have to figure out how they're going to afford to finish their degrees.
Exactly. And we're talking about a pretty significant amount of money here. Tuition at the University of Eswatini is about US $1,500 per year,
Okay.
not including living expenses.
Yeah, that adds up fast, especially in a country where a lot of people are struggling financially.
Right. It's basically like the government is saying, hey, if you want to study something that we've decided isn't practical, you're on your own.
Ouch, yeah. That's a tough message to send.
But is it really that simple? Like, are humanities degrees really that useless?
Well, not everyone thinks so. There are a lot of people pushing back against this decision.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
For example, the Eswatini Association of Higher Education Institutions. They're saying Eswatini isn't just responsible for its own little job market,
Right.
They're part of a bigger picture.
Right. They're part of the Southern African Development Community, the SADC.
Exactly. And that organization encourages countries to work together to develop a wider range of skills across the region.
It's like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of approach.
Yeah. And Sibumawano Nembe, the spokesperson for that association, he's really emphasizing this SADC mandate.
What's he saying?
Well, he's saying that Eswatini is actually obligated to contribute to what they call human capacity building for the entire region.
Human capacity building. What does that even mean?
It's about investing in people's potential, not just training them for specific jobs, but helping them develop skills that will make the whole region stronger and more adaptable.
So they're saying that Eswatini is being short-sighted by just focusing on their immediate job needs and ignoring this bigger regional responsibility.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
It's like they're prioritizing the me over the we.
Right. And it raises a really interesting question. How do we balance national interests with the need for regional cooperation and development.
It's tricky for sure.
There are no easy answers.
Yeah, but it's a conversation we need to be having.
Absolutely, especially since it's not just external organizations criticizing this move. There's pushback within Eswatini itself.
Oh, really? Like who?
Well, the University of Eswatini, for example.
What are they saying?
Their vice chancellor, Professor Justice Thwala, said he welcomed the government's decision.
So they're on board then?
It sounds that way at first, right? But then he goes on to emphasize the need for further discussions to figure out how to move forward.
That's interesting. So they're agreeing, but they're also kind of hedging their bets.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to appease the government while also signaling that they're not entirely comfortable with the decision.
Like, we hear you, but we also have some concerns.
Right. It'll be interesting to see how that tension plays out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, but here's where things get really complicated. The teacher shortage in Eswatini.
Oh, right. I'd heard about that. It's pretty bad, isn't it?
It is. They currently have about 18,000 teachers for a population of 1.2 million.
Wow, that's a lot of students per teacher.
Yeah, it's way below what they need. Ideally, they should have 4,000 more teachers just to meet the current demand.
Yikes. And that means bigger class sizes, less individual attention for students, all sorts of challenges.
Exactly. And Makolisi Nkamfalala from the Swaziland National Association of Teachers, he's calling the government's decision to defund humanities illogical.
He has a point. I mean, those humanities grads often go on to become teachers, right?
Exactly. So by cutting funding for those degrees, the government is essentially making the teacher shortage even worse.
It's like they're trying to solve one problem by creating another one.
A classic case of unintended consequences.
Right. And it makes you wonder, is this really just about economics and jobs?
Yeah. Or is there something more going on here? Like, is there a deeper agenda at play?
That's a great question. And it's one we're going to explore in more detail in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned. It's easy to get lost in all the politics and economics.
Right.
But we can't forget about the real people who are affected by this.
The students.
Exactly. Like Sizilwethu. What's he supposed to do now?
I know, it's a tough spot to be in.
Does he stay in Eswatini and try to figure out how to pay for school without those scholarships? Or does he leave his home country to try to get an education somewhere else?
It's a huge decision to have to make.
It is, and he's not the only one facing this dilemma.
Right. So many students are being forced to make these life-altering choices because of a decision that feels totally out of their control.
And it's not just the financial burden either.
No.
It's the message it sends.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like the government is saying, hey, your dreams and aspirations, they don't really matter as much as our economic priorities.
Ouch. Yeah, that's got to sting.
It does. It can be so demoralizing for students who are passionate about the humanities.
Right. They're being told that what they're interested in isn't valuable.
Exactly. And I think that can have a ripple effect.
How so?
Well, it discourages young people from even considering those fields in the first place.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It limits their options and narrows their horizons.
It's like closing doors before they even have a chance to open.
Precisely. And, you know, I can relate to that feeling.
Right.
Yeah, when I was in college, there was this constant pressure to choose a practical major.
Right, something that would lead to a job straight out of school.
Exactly. Everyone was telling me, don't study history or literature. You'll never make any money with that.
Did you listen to them?
Well, I was tempted.
Yeah.
But I couldn't shake this feeling that I was meant to study what I was truly passionate about.
Good for you.
Thanks. It wasn't easy, but I'm glad I followed my heart.
So what did you end up studying?
History and literature.
No way.
Yep. And you know what?
What?
Those useless degrees have actually been incredibly valuable in my career.
I bet.
Because the skills you learn in the humanities, critical thinking, communication, empathy, those are transferable to any field.
Right. It's not just about the specific facts you memorize. It's about how you learn to think and process information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in a world that's as complex and interconnected as ours, those skills are more important than ever.
Absolutely. Like, we need people who can sift through all the noise, who can see different perspectives, who can communicate effectively across cultures.
Those are the hallmarks of a well-rounded individual. Someone who can truly contribute to society.
And those are the kinds of people we need to be nurturing.
Yes. And I think this situation in Eswatini is a wake-up call for all of us.
In what way?
It's a reminder that we can't take education for granted. We need to be actively defending the humanities.
Yes.
And making sure that all students have access to a well-rounded education.
Because at the end of the day, what kind of society are we building if we only value the people who can code or build machines?
Right. What happens to our empathy, our
Yes.
creativity, our critical thinking skills?
Those are the qualities that make us human.
Exactly. They're essential for a thriving and just society.
And if we neglect them, we do so at our own peril.
It's like we're at a crossroads.
Okay.
Do we continue down this path of hyper-specialization?
Where everyone is just a cog in the machine.
Right.
Or do we create a system that values a broader range of skills and knowledge?
That's the choice we face.
And it's not just a choice for Eswatini.
No, this is a global issue.
The future of our world might very well depend on the path we choose.
I believe it does.
So as we think about this decision in Eswatini, it's not just about the impact on students or the education system.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about the long-term consequences for their entire society.
Precisely. What message does this send to young people about what's valued and what's not? How does it shape their dreams and their sense of what's possible?
Yeah, and what about the potential loss of talent? What if the next great Eswatini novelist or historian or philosopher is discouraged from pursuing their passion because they're told it's not practical?
It's a real possibility and a tragic one.
Because we can't always measure the value of something in purely economic terms.
Exactly. There's a cultural and intellectual cost to these decisions.
A cost that's hard to quantify, but no less real.
Absolutely. And it makes me wonder about the role of education in a broader sense.
What do you mean?
Is it simply about preparing people for the workforce? Or is there something more to it?
That's a big question.
It is. But I think at its core, education is about expanding our horizons, cultivating our curiosity.
Yes.
Helping us understand ourselves and the world around us.
It's about becoming well-rounded individuals who can contribute to society.
Exactly. Through our work, our art, our activism.
Or simply through the way we interact with our communities.
Yes. It's about empowering people to reach their full potential as human beings.
Not just as economic units.
Exactly. And that's what's so concerning about this decision in Eswatini.
It feels like they're taking a step backwards.
It does.
Like they're narrowing possibilities and rejecting the idea that education should be about more than just job training.
It's a reminder that we need to constantly be advocating for a broader vision of education.
One that values the humanities alongside STEM fields.
Yes, one that recognizes the importance of critical thinking and creativity.
And one that empowers individuals to make meaningful contributions to society. So what can people do? How can we push back against this trend of devaluing the humanities?
Well, for starters, we can talk about it.
Okay.
Like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
By sharing these stories and raising these questions, we're helping to shine a light on the problem.
We're making people aware.
Exactly. And awareness is the first step towards change.
We can also support organizations that are fighting for educational equity.
Yes.
And access to the humanities, both in Eswatini and around the world.
Absolutely. And we can make sure that we're valuing the humanities in our own lives and communities.
How do we do that?
Well, we can read books, attend lectures, engage in thoughtful conversations.
Yes.
And most importantly, we can encourage young people to explore their passions.
No matter what field they choose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to be the change we want to see in the world.
Love that.
And remember, the future isn't predetermined.
Okay.
It's something we create through our choices, our actions, and our commitment to a more just and enlightened society.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
We started out talking about one country's budget, and now we're like having this deep philosophical discussion.
Yeah, it's amazing how these things connect.
About the meaning of education in the 21st century.
It's like this underlying anxiety, you know.
Ooh, tell me more.
The world is changing so fast.
Yeah.
And I think it's natural to like grasp for things that feel certain.
Okay.
Like job skills.
Right, like something concrete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that can lead to a very limited view of what education should be.
Because then we end up in this weird situation where the very subjects that can help us actually make sense of all this change, you know, like history and philosophy and literature.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are getting pushed aside.
It's like we're saying, don't learn from the past, don't question the present, just focus on the technical stuff.
Right. And that's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is, because it creates a society that can't adapt, that can't innovate, that can't even really communicate effectively.
And that's what we're seeing all around us, isn't it?
It is.
Like all this talk about misinformation and echo chambers and people not being able to agree on basic facts.
Exactly. And I think that's a direct result of devaluing the humanities.
Because when you strip away those subjects, you're stripping away the tools for critical thinking, for civil discourse, for understanding nuance.
It's like we're saying, don't worry about the why, just focus on the how.
But the how without the why can be really dangerous.
Absolutely. Look at history.
Right.
All those technological advancements that were used for both good and evil.
Exactly. And the humanities help us grapple with those ethical questions. They help us understand the complexities of human motivation.
Yes. They teach us to see the interconnectedness of things.
Without that, it's just blind progress.
And that rarely ends well.
So what can we do about it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It feels overwhelming, like this huge systemic problem.
It's a big problem.
Is there even any point in pushing back?
I think there is. I really do.
Okay, I'm listening.
Every conversation like this is a step in the right direction.
So just talking about it helps.
It does. Because it raises awareness and it challenges the assumptions that got us here in the first place.
Okay, I can see that. And what about those soft skills you were talking about earlier?
Oh, yeah, those are crucial.
Can you give me an example of how we can value those more?
Sure. Imagine you're in a business meeting.
Okay.
And everyone's super focused on, like, the data and the bottom line.
Right, the numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then someone speaks up and says, hold on, but what are the ethical implications of this decision? How will this impact our employees or our customers or the community?
Oh, I see.
That's someone bringing in humanities perspective, even if they didn't necessarily major in philosophy or something.
Right. It's about applying that humanist way of thinking to any situation.
Exactly. It's about asking the why questions.
Along with the how question.
Yes. Because progress without purpose is meaningless.
I love that. Progress without purpose is meaningless.
That's true.
So bringing it all back to Eswatini, this decision might seem like a done deal.
Right. It has.
But it sparked some really important conversations.
It has.
Both there and around the world.
And it's forcing us to confront some tough questions.
Yeah.
About how we value education and what kind of future we're building.
It's been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
So much to think about.
So much.
And as we wrap up here, let me leave you with this.
Okay.
If your government decided to stop funding certain degrees.
Ooh, interesting.
Which ones would you prioritize? And why? What does that say about your values and your vision for the future?
That's a great question to ponder. It's a question that we all need to be asking ourselves because the answers we come up with today will shape the world we inherit tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.